Turn into here.
What was this?
Oh, thank you very much.
You're just like,
How's yours? Is your thing blue? Look at your microphone right there. Yeah. Okay, you're good there. Okay, great. Tighten me up. Mic check. Got it.
no, check it when you're all up in it. You're not going to be all up in it.
Mic check. It's like working.
We're talking right now. Just like this.
Okay.
Just like this.
Okay. Let me open this up. Okay, great. I can't cross my legs, which is fine.
Too much package in the middle.
Dude, it's too much legs. It's too much. Okay. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Don't Be Average podcast. I'm with my great friend, Ali Reda. We've been friends, I think, since we were about 17 years old.
You were 17. I would have been 18 or 19 at the time.
Yeah, it's a long story. We're not going to go into that today, how we met. But we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
Ever since I started my personal training, my nutrition business, he's always been a huge supporter of me. Let me train family members, and always was helping me with buying products and supporting our business, everything. But then throughout life, obviously you have your son now. I got 4 kids. We've grown up in life together, and now we've probably known each other as long, 17 years.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
So, couple career titles. Obviously, your dad.
Yep.
Maybe dad.
First and foremost,
right? Also, he's executive managing officer at Keller Williams. Yeah. So we'll be diving into that in a minute. Yeah. Also, managing partner of Team Tailored Home Finance. Okay, so maybe you can explain those things a little bit, and maybe explain your history and how you got to where you are today. Yeah. But I'm gonna wrap it up in a nutshell. Very awesome guy, great friend of mine. Great leader in what he does, very good speaker. He's spoken to our team several times, and it blows me away every time. So you're not an average dude. Grateful to have you on the show. I look up to you as a man, as a friend, and I'm glad you're here. So
cool, man. Well, I don't know how to follow up that introduction, man. That was a lot, and I'm also humbled to be here, man. I appreciate you having me. Mm-hmm. So we should rewind right back.
Let's rewind. Okay. Start where you want to start.
Start where I want to start. So. Let's see. I mean, going back, how did I get started doing what I was doing? I'm not going to go back to the school days, but I will talk a little bit about just how in those years, when we initially met, I was trying to figure myself out. Mm-hmm. I didn't have, my confidence was through sports. And then once that ended, in the high school era, I was trying to find where my confidence was. So I was just kind of working to work.
Yeah.
I didn't graduate on time. I was just getting out there, making money, and trying to figure out what my place was in the world. And what I discovered, there was a job that I had. I don't even know if you know this, but I was doing door-to-door sales.
No. I remember pizza. I remember pizza. Yeah, not the door-to-door sales.
Yeah, I did pizza for a while. That was actually a pretty fun job. But I was doing door-to-door sales, and I figured out something in there, which has helped me along the way. What the job was, I'm not going to bore you with all the details of it, but essentially I would go to people's door and I would try to change it. It was when cable was changing to digital from analog. Okay. So I would go in there and I would get paid based on if I changed out their stuff, and then I had the opportunity to upgrade them.
Okay.
So one thing that I always have been is kind of organized and systematic about things. So what I did was I would go get my territory in the morning and I'd go and just start knocking these doors. Right, everybody that opened the door, I was selling them the whole package. Yeah. Right, I was selling everything I possibly could. But the problem that I found, because I was recording as I was going, is that 75% of the people that I recognized were home. I'd either see cars in the driveway, or I'd see a TV on, or see people moving around, peeking out windows. They were not opening the door.
Yeah.
So no matter how good I was at my job, if they didn't open the door, I didn't get to swing my bat.
Yep.
So I asked myself the question, I said, okay, why aren't they opening the door? Mm-hmm. The reason why was because I looked like a solicitor. So I said, okay, how do I change that appearance? Well, the required attire was khakis and a company button-up polo shirt, and would walk up with a clipboard.
That's solicitor, 100%.
100%, right?
Yep.
So I did something against the rules. I didn't tell my bosses, right? But I bought an extra pair of clothes with me one day, and once I got my equipment in the office, had the morning meeting, got my territory, I went out, and then I changed. I put on some jeans, a little raggedy jeans. I had the same polo, but I untucked it, and I'd stop by Home Depot and I bought myself a little tool belt. Right, so I looked like a technician. Right, left the clipboard in the car. What happened was immediately it flipped. Where 75% of the people who were not answering the door, it flipped now. 75% of the people that were home were answering the door.
Wow.
So literally overnight, I came back to the office that next day in the morning, and I turned in all my sales, and they were like, "Whoa, you had a great day." And then it was, "Whoa, you had a great week." And then, "Whoa, you're like crushing any company numbers we've ever seen. We need to know what you're doing." Then I let them in on the secret. I'm going actually against company policy. All I did was change my attire for more people to answer the door. So long story short, I fell in love with that psychology, right? The psychology of sales, right? People want to be helped, but they don't want to be sold.
Yep.
So when you're approaching looking like you're about to sell something, people will avoid and put their walls up really high. So that was kind of the start of it for me. Fast forward, I got into the mortgage industry, and I was doing phone sales. And I applied that same psychology to phone sales, had some success quickly, but I found that, okay, being in the transactions, dealing with the customers, it was cool. You know, you get the customer every once in a while where you can change a life, and that's fun. But for me, my passion was in developing people for the long term, showing people how to do this and build a career and change their world. So I quickly got into leadership.
Like teaching them.
Teaching.
Yep.
And I've been in the mortgage industry now almost 17 years.
Wow.
Right. And just before the pandemic, I had a team. We were doing quite a bit of production. Money was great. All my financial goals were checked off. And I was just kind of burnt out from it all. So I decided at that point I was looking for the next thing. And I didn't really know what that was, but I knew it had something to do with developing people. So I brought on who is now the CEO of Tailored Home Finance. And I said, "Hey, 2-year plan, you're going to run this thing. I'm going to go find some other opportunity and do that." So that was kind of the game plan. And then as soon as I put that energy out into the world, things started moving around as they do. And this opportunity came up, and it took about a year. This current opportunity with Keller Williams came up. It was a brokerage that we did a lot of mortgage business with, and they said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to lead us." It was kind of post-pandemic. All of the stuff with George Floyd happened literally in the backyard. You know, you're in the same area.
Yep.
Right? We're right down the street from each other. And what was a very vibey, collaborative, in-person office was now everybody was scattered and working from home, scared to come into the office. So they said, "Okay, we need a strong leader to come in and get people engaged again." So I said, "Hey, this is not what I pictured, but this is a pretty cool opportunity." And a lot of what I'm doing at Keller Williams is coaching, training, developing people to build pretty cool businesses.
Yeah. How many people are in that office? And they're all realtors?
Yep.
Okay. How many people are in there?
About 300 agents.
300. I know a lot of those agents.
Yeah.
And they're awesome people.
I bet they come in here.
Yeah. Yep. Ryan just came in today.
Yeah.
And so I got to see him for a second.
Edwards?
Yeah. So I was like, me and him met way back in the party days.
Yeah.
And through Mason.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how me and him met. So I was like, Ali's coming here later. He's like, "Oh, that's awesome." So it's so funny, like all the people, maybe the people who are like fun party people and out like being social now are in sales. Most likely.
That's right.
And how we all kind of like figured it out.
And we're all grown up now, and we have things and responsibilities, and so it's cool to see just the parallels. Like you keep track of these people over time and see what everyone does, and you know, and you're just like, man, I remember like at the bar, you know, like it seems like just a couple years ago, but it was actually like a decade and a half, 2 decades ago.
Yeah, 15 years ago.
Yeah, that we were doing that stuff. So yeah,
that's wild. Okay, so based off that, you're a very fit guy. Like me and you really bonded over fitness, right? And you'd ask me questions about nutrition, fitness, all that stuff. And then you become this guy who's really into working out.
Yes. Yes. And to be clear, Nate, we are not at the same level.
Consistency wise,
I'm trying to be like Nate. I'm trying to be like Nate. Let it be known.
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
to be like you.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
But you get up early.
Yeah.
And you go work out.
Yeah.
Like you're a very disciplined guy. Like you said before, like you had to have your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Right. So what kind of motivates you to be organized like that, to like get to the next level, whatever your goals and dreams are? Like, what's that mental process?
You know, Nate, it was kind of I don't know if it was a rude awakening for me, but I mean, I've always known that I'm not that scholastically smart.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not super intelligent. I never excelled a ton at school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My skill has always been with people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So in order for me to do well in life, I realized at one point that I have to win in the margins.
Yeah.
You know, I have to do the things that people aren't willing to do, right? Because I don't have that natural intelligence that'll bounce me right out of college into a high-paying job, into an illustrious career. I kind of have to figure it out myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I learned along the way that consistency over time is going to win. It's going to beat any degree. It's going to beat any amount of education or schooling or whatever. I can beat you in the long run. You might beat me out the gates, but I'm going to beat you in the long run by just having disciplined habits. And I've become reliant on that right now. It's my fuel. Like I don't drink coffee in the morning. I work out in the morning. That's how I wake up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I get back from the gym, I journal because I got to get my mind right. Because what I do is not like I'm not solving mathematical problems. I'm solving people problems.
Yeah, which are the hardest problems.
Math is easy. People are more difficult. They're more complex, and everybody's different.
Yeah.
So I have to be mentally sharp. I have to be awake. You know, I have to be sound, and I have to have my own kind of BS out of the way in order to be present to solve people problems.
Yeah.
And the only way I can do that is by being disciplined in the things that I'm doing to prepare myself for the day. So the way I start my day and the way I finish my day is extremely important. It's kind of boring and it's not fun to talk about. It's, you know, but I wake up at a certain time. I go get my physical activity in.
Let's walk through a day.
Yeah.
Because it helps people a lot. Because people are always like, how do you start your day? How do you end your day? And what do you eat? Like, what do you work out? Like, stuff like that. So you wake up at what time? Let's walk through a day.
So I wake up, my alarm goes off at 4:45. I don't wake up at 4:45. I get to snooze once. It snoozes for 7 minutes, and then it wakes me up. So I wake up. I get out of bed just before 5 o'clock, and I don't have this like whole morning routine inside. Like for me, the important thing that I always like one of the things before I go to sleep is I set an intention that when my alarm clock, the snooze button goes off the second time, my only job is to put my feet on the ground.
Nice.
Right, I'm not committing to doing anything beyond that. Get my feet on the ground. Once I do that, I stand up. I'm awake. Right, and I'm out the door pretty much immediately. I get dressed, whatever, grab a piece of fruit, right? Usually an apple or a banana or something like that, and I get out the door and go right to the gym. My gym routine, I was in CrossFit for a long time. I stopped that just because I'm a little bit too competitive, and that's a sport that's amazing and exciting. But if you're really, really competitive, you can put yourself at risk because you do things that you probably shouldn't be doing. And my body started hurting. So what I do now is mostly I'll do alpha, which is like kind of like a high intensity type workout. I need organized workouts and group activities because people feel me. I'm envious of you just being able to go in and just do your own thing and whatever. I can't do that.
I'm envious of you getting excited to wake up at 4:45. So there's that. I'm like, man, that sounds cool. Not happening.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's 7 a.m. or when the kids wake me up.
Oh, the kids wake you up. Yeah. So I do that, and then a couple times a week, like I'll play pickleball, I play basketball, you know, and stuff. That to me is like really exciting. Yeah. It doesn't take much for me. I don't have to like set intentions to get up and go play ball. Or go play a sport because that's really exciting. Come back after that, and I do my journaling. By the time that's done, my son Zane's waking up. He's coming into my room. We hang out, spend some quality time for a little bit, kind of set our intentions for the day together. That's really important. And then get him dressed, get him off to the bus, and come home, shower, get off to the office. I'm usually at the office between 8:30 in the morning.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you're doing the intentions with your son too. So now he gets to grow up with that, which is not average. That's not normal, right? But it's so valuable for other parents to be like, oh, I want to try that. You know? So like you get to the office and then you get home. Yeah. What do you do usually before like bedtime, before Zane goes to bed, and then you guys do another little thing, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I did early on is like with Zane, you know, I don't claim to do a lot of things right, but one thing I have dialed in that I kind of refuse to give away on is a bedtime. And it's both for him and for me, right? Kids thrive on routine. So he goes to bed at 7:30, and it's sharp. And it doesn't. Well, on the weekends we'll let him go to 8, but that's about it, right? Yeah. So 7:30 he goes to bed, and before that, you know, with the shower, doing all the bedtime routine and stuff, we read a book, and then we sit down and we do every night. It's either we alternate every other day. It's the best part of your day, 3 things, or grateful. What are you grateful for? 3 things.
Perfect.
And we do that together. We alternate. He does one, I do one. He does one, I do one. And
I love that.
God, it's amazing the things that come out of these kids' mouth and how it transforms over the years. And it's an activity for him, but it's really an activity for me.
I feel the same.
You know, by trying to instill these good habits, you're instilling the habits in yourself, and you're the one who's learning and taking real life application, but it's by hearing the simplicity of what comes out of your child's mouth.
Yeah, we talked about that too. So we do like gratitude. Like, what are you grateful for today? And they're like, play at the park. You know, my girl's a little bit younger than Zane, but it's just like really simple stuff. And then it reminds me like, okay, what am I grateful for?
Right.
Just the little stuff. And I'm just grateful like they're there and that we're all safe, you know, and just little stuff like that. And it brings you just back to the present so fast.
That's right. I mean, we're more inclined to think of like, what are these grandiose things that we're grateful for when like, you know what, like all of the best things are in the simplicity.
Dude, it's crazy. Based off that, where'd you learn that? Like, it's not common knowledge to learn to journal. It's not common knowledge to learn to do gratitude. Like, I learned that through some of our mentors, you know, in business, and like Jim Rohn was a big person. If you guys are interested in Jim Rohn, he's on YouTube. He's an OG personal development guy, trained Tony Robbins. But where did you learn that? Because we learned that at different spots.
I'll tell you what, the pandemic for me, and it was for a lot of people, was a big change in my world for me. It was right after my divorce. I got divorced late 2019. And up until that point, I was just trying to run as fast as I could. Right. And I thought like that's what it was about, the hustle culture that we live in. Like I'm just going to outwork you. And it's physical outworking. I'm gonna do more during the day, and I'm gonna work longer hours, and I would take pride in, I would post like little videos leaving the office at 9 p.m. and take pride in that.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been there.
To me, that's not it. When I see people doing that right now, I'm like, you got it wrong. You need leverage. Right? You need purpose. Like you're not doing it right. That's a whole other topic.
But, yeah.
I got that when the pandemic happened. Being the extrovert that I am, I was now confined to my office, and I get my energy through people, and I was no longer getting that energy. And I had this like dark cloud over me that I couldn't seem to shake. And I was trying to find the answer. I was like, well, it's because my gym's closed. I can't go do CrossFit, you know, so that's why I'm down. And I was like, okay, we'll solve that. I'm going to go outside and do it in my driveway.
Yeah.
It didn't help me.
Okay.
I didn't do anything. You know, I actually felt more down, and I was getting more frustrated. And I was like, oh, what is going on? And what I realized was, being that I'm not running fast anymore, I slowed down enough to hear my thoughts and to hear my feelings and feel my feelings, which I hadn't been doing for the previous years. I was an emotional ice cube at that point, which is way against my nature of who I was as a child and how I grew up. Somehow along the way I became that.
Got it.
Right. So for me, that's when I started my therapy journey. And I go to therapy once a week, every week, religiously since April 2020. That for me has been the most eye-opening thing. I've gone so internal with myself, learning about who I am and what makes me tick, And what are my idiosyncrasies? What are my deficiencies? What are the scars that I have? And I think there's a fallacy out there, Nate, that you do that like you're trying to solve a problem. And that's largely how my mind worked. Like, I'm going to go and solve this and be done. Like, I'm going to the doctor, who's going to put a Band-Aid on the thing, it's going to heal, and I'll be done.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that at all. All you're doing is heightening your self-awareness. And as you learn about yourself, what ends up happening is you realize that all of the things around you that happen are not about you. Nothing's happening to you. Things are happening around you when you assign value to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when you start to realize that, then you start to seek different things out, and you start to view the world differently. And as a leader, you actually start to see people more. They're not just pawns, around you. They're people who are going through their own things. And when you realize the things that they're doing is not about you, you can actually have an opportunity to see them and help them and empathize with them and be of value to more people.
Isn't that wild? Like, okay, so that happened in 2020, and you're like getting burnt out because you're going so fast, which I think is, you probably learned that from sports. Sports is like, I'm just going to outwork you, right? And just like, that was me too. So sports has really good things that you pick up, like discipline and consistency and all that other stuff. But then it's like, sometimes you're like, okay, there's a whole other aspect to this mindset, mental health piece. And even especially as guys, like we got, guys don't really express emotions, right? And even if, like you said, with therapy, people would be like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that because I don't think anything's wrong with me, or whatever it is. So that's what I'm glad you touched on that, because a lot of people like want to learn more about mental health and like, why do I have this dark cloud over my head, or why I'm not feeling this certain way. But it's funny to look back, and maybe you'll agree with this, like all that really worked in your favor to be how awesome you are now. In your position, everything was just moving around just to be like, okay, for you to be your best.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think Zig Ziglar said it best, right? He said, there's a quote that I love that he said, it says, lack of direction, not time, is the problem. We all have 24 hours of the day.
Amen.
Right? And the way I think about that is, I always used to think that like the uber successful people, right? The 1%ers, the people that we all look up to, they're just working harder. They're not. They're actually probably working less than we are. Right? But what they're doing is this, life is all about choices. And they're just making different choices throughout the day than we are. Right? So this idea of going to work and exchanging your time for money, like that's your value proposition. How can I make the most money in the least amount of time? How effective can you be? What are the things that you're choosing to do? What are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? Right? Those are the difference makers between the people who are really, financially very successful and the people who are changing the world and the worker bees.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's a lot of young kids will come into the hub, and no one's really asked them what their goals and dreams are. So people will come in, I'm like, oh, they're like, I'm going to school. I'm like, cool, what are you going to school for? And they'll be like, well, I'm going for this. I'm like, great. So no one's probably ever asked you this, but I was like, what do you want your life to look like in 5, 10, 15 years? Like, what do you want your days to look like? Do you want to go somewhere and work every single day? And they're like, well, most of them like, I don't know, because they've never been asked those questions. I'm like, okay, so what do you want? Like, do you want to be a really stressed out day, or a comfortable day? Like, well, probably a more comfortable day. I'm like, do you want to travel the world, or do you not want to travel the world? Well, I want to travel the world. Okay. And then they're like, well, I'm like, do you want freedom to do whatever you want and to work whenever you want? Maybe work from the internet if you want, like utilize that tool or some sort of leverage or whatever. Or do you want to work a 9-to-5 for 50 years and then hopefully retire? And like, well, I want flexibility and leverage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so based off of those things, you're going to have to look at whatever your degree is and whatever job you want to get. Is that going to take you there? Because it starts from today. It doesn't start from, it's going to start from this 5, 10, 15-year plan. But if your trajectory is over here and you're trying to go over here, you're going to end up 35, 40 years old, pretty pissed off.
Right, and rethinking everything and so on. And I think that's super real, and it's good that you can ask those questions to get the younger generations thinking, because I mean, I did that for a while. I worked the corporate jobs, and it wasn't until way downstream that I started to ask questions and have enough bravery to actually make a change. But the reality is most people don't. They're not brave enough to do that. Like what we're supposed to do, what we're taught is, you know, you go to school, you get a degree, you take on debt, or you have wealthy parents who pay for it.
Yep.
And you go into the workforce and you show up on time and you do your work, and over time you'll get raises and move up the corporate ladder, and hopefully before by the time you retire or you can't work anymore, you have enough stashed away that you can kind of maintain until your time is up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the quote unquote American dream.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people in this, and it might not be popular to say this, but I think most people settle in life. You know, whether it's a job or a personal relationship or whatever, because they would rather be quote unquote safe, right, than actually take a risk and face potential failure. Because
100%.
when you break it down so simply in the questions that you ask these young people when they come in here, like right? Everyone's going to answer the same way. But the order of, there's somebody, I was at a conference recently, and there was a guy, his name's Emmerich, and he was talking about, what was it called? It was be, do, have.
Yeah, I love the be, do, have. That was Jim Rohn. Oh, okay, yeah.
That's Jim Rohn.
That's Jim Rohn.
Right. So
yeah.
The idea behind it is people see you, right, and they want to have what you have, but they forget what comes like, hey, like Nate, you seem like you're living a good life. You live in a nice house. You have a nice car, you know, all of this stuff, right? They just want to have what you have, but you got to start from the beginning, right? You got to be who you are, right? So you're out there doing the things that you're doing on a daily basis, right? So then you can get to that point of having. It doesn't start with have. It starts with be, and then do, and then you can have.
Yep.
But a lot of the younger generations are just wanting to skip to the have part. They don't know who you've been. They don't know in, what was it, 2009 or 8 or 7? When you, in Hopkins Fusion?
2009. September 2009.
Okay, so I was right.
Yeah, good job.
2009. They don't see those days. Like when you took a risk, right? You were working at the Calhoun Beach Club right before that.
Yep.
And you took a chance and you opened this shop, right? And I walked in there and it was kind of a little bit janky in there. You had your little products, you know, and you're just like, oh, I'm going all in on this thing, right? And you kind of hustled out of that place for a little bit.
Yep, 3 years.
Yeah, and then it kind of grew a little bit, and then it grew a little bit, and then they didn't see all that, like all the blood, sweat, and tears in that time. And you weren't making a ton of money in that time, you know. They didn't see any of that. You were taking a lot of risk, and you were dealing with a lot of hardship and probably a lot of internal struggle to like just go out and do that. But they see where you're at now.